You're hiring us to bring your vision to life. In your case, it's a trip. In my case, it might be a video deliverable.
Right. Every person is different. Every single trip is different. Everybody wants different things in hotels.
What's your process for vetting the information and then giving them the better guidance? What do a video producer and a travel agent have in common?
Authenticity.
All right, I am here with Chelsea from Pack and Plan. Hi, Chelsea. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you, John?
So let's. I'm doing well. Let's talk a little bit about, give the people what they need to know.
Yeah.
Who are you and what do you do?
So my name's Chelsea Keenan. I own a travel agency called Pack, Planning Adventures with Chelsea Keenan. And I typically say, hi, I'm Chelsea Keenan. And always makes people giggle. I started Pack about 2.5 years ago full time, which we had actually met when I was
Before
in my
that,
previous career. But I really had a travel bug and knew that I wanted to allow people to travel and teach people to travel the way that I saw travel and not necessarily the way that travel was being sold via Instagram or TikTok or social media. And so I wrote a business plan and started Pack. I actually interviewed with a lot of different travel agencies, did not think they were very authentic at all. And so that was where Pack came about, built on my morals of honesty and authenticity and integrity and being honest about travel, which we talked about. I feel like this is how you kind of built your business too.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that there's a collaborative piece of being, that we've talked a lot about here, the elevated experience of being easy to work with, right? And I always make the joke that there's the two personas attracted to video production, which are generally super creative, artistic people, or people that are very technical. They like the buttons, they like the the gear and stuff. And neither of those personas are generally easy to work with, right? They're kind of in their own sphere at times. And so part of that creative content process is just being easy to work with, right? And being collaborative. But part of being collaborative means you have to, and even being easy to work with is being honest, right?
Yeah.
Is being authentic. And so I think that that's where we really align. I want to ask you, you mentioned that there was some inauthenticity, there's authenticity, there's the way that I travel, quoting you, versus what is that way? How would you define it?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and a question that I get all of the time from my clients of how did you know how we wanted to travel? How did you know all of this? And I think people think of traditional travel agents doing the Liberty Travel, and you walk in the door and they sit down and they hand you the little tickets in that little case, that little paper thing, but all they really do for you is book your hotel, book your transportation, and send you on your way. And I know and I think that people want a lot more than that. They're craving knowledge. They're craving authentic experiences when they travel abroad. Now more than ever, they want to experience what the locals experience. And some of these traditional travel agents have never even been to Europe or walk those streets. And so that was a place where I felt I was at an advantage when I created Pack, was that I had been to 27 plus countries. I've backpacked Europe. I've lived that disgusting hostel life and have also lived some nice, glamorous lives while abroad. But I have been to those holes in the walls over there, and I can help create that authentic experience that people, I think, are so desperately craving because they look at Instagram and they see that picture perfect edited world and they're like, oh, I want to experience that, and I want to see that beauty, but I also know it's fake.
Right.
And so I'm there to try and deliver this Instagram worthy experience that has never been on Instagram before. If that makes sense.
No, that makes total sense. It's that, I guess it's akin to music, right? Where you want to be the first people to know the band, right?
Yeah.
And then the band sort of hits a peak, and all of a sudden they're like, oh, everybody listen, everybody goes to Santorini.
Yeah.
Everybody goes to insert city. And I think that, so how do you, how do you do that when you're working with somebody who is seeking, they're coming to you with information that's on Instagram. They want that experience, right? Or whatever that looks like, right? And maybe they're asking you for things that you know aren't going to deliver when you're there. That for whatever reason, the filter, right? We always talk about the filter. The filter is not real, but there is a way to get there. So what's your process for, vetting the information and then giving them the better guidance?
Yeah. So typically I start off with any new packer, I call them. I start off with any new packer with a conversation, and I have a list of qualifying questions that ask them about their preferences and what they're looking for. And it's not just the people-pleasing questions of where do you want to go and what do you want to see. I ask them, what's your vision? When you're not the exact cities you want to go to, but you're going to Italy. What is your vision? If you're on your honeymoon or you're on your anniversary trip, what do you see yourselves doing on this trip? Do you want to be beachside, relaxing? Do you want to be in a villa in the countryside? And so I try and get their mindset away from exact pinpoints of locations, and rather, what are your surroundings and how do you envision yourself there? And from that, I will go through my mind and go through places I've been or go through places that I know of and recommend to them places that they should go. For example, if they say, I really want to be in the countryside in Tuscany, whatever, here's a TikTok place that I found. I want to go here. I'll look at it and I'll say, oh, that place looks really amazing. How about this villa? It's still in Tuscany. It's 30 minutes outside of where you want to stay. It fits your budget a little bit more, and we can stretch your budget even further if you end up staying here. And so I try and sandwich it, I guess, and politely say that their idea is really cool, but offer an alternative that I know will bring a more local and authentic experience, and also give back to the local community in wherever they're going, versus just, I don't know, feed Instagram more. Yeah.
So what do you end up? I don't know how to describe it. What do you do when you run into somebody who's like, no, I hearted the picture. Yeah. I sent you the picture. Yeah. I want that place. And even if do you have a process where, we talked about this off camera a little bit, what I do, but what is your process there?
Ultimately, I am there to create the most customized trip for this person, not what someone else has done when they've gone to the same location, or I've planned a similar trip to this. And so if someone comes to me and they are dead set on something, I will still offer alternatives. If they're still dead set on it, I'll say, okay, just so you know, I'm going to book this as fully refundable. And and I give a little backup, and so that if a little bit down the road, they're like, you know what, I did a little bit more research into it. You're right, which I love hearing. I would like to stay at that villa. We can cancel where they originally booked. No problem. They get all their money back, and we can book at the new place.
And I like that because it's akin to putting your money where your mouth is. Because at the end of the day, the work in what you do is the labor. It is the planning. It is the picking. It's the conversations. And we haven't mentioned this yet, but my wife and I recently did a trip, and Chelsea quarterbacked it, I should say. We did Paris and Italy, and really it was a flawless experience. And a lot of the recommendations, we provided our vision for what it was going to look like. In fact, I think one of the mistakes that I think we made, which is to no one's fault, honestly, it's probably just a growing up and getting older, these are starting to come in, was we were thinking back to our last time that we'd gone to Europe, which was over our honeymoon, and we're not the biggest museum folks. We want to experience talking to people, meeting. So we purposely were like, don't worry about booking some of those things. And then when we got to some of these locations, we're like, we probably should have locked in one or two of those things that we now can't. Yeah. And so those are things where, that's, we give you the information,
Right.
you're customizing
Right.
to us, right? And those are things we learned along the way. But I think that when we talk about the pushback element that you were describing, you know, I always look at it as this kind of, instead of 3 strikes in baseball, 2 strikes rule, right? At the end of the day, you're hiring us, and moving over to the video production space perspective, you're hiring us to bring your vision to life. In your case, it's a trip. In my case, it might be a video deliverable or a video that's going to have a end goal, right? A call to action for your target audience, whatever it might be. And you may have a vision, and we may see that, hey, there's a lower cost solution to do this logistically different. Or if we do this creative method, that's going to have a bigger impact. We've seen that over and over and over again, but it's mostly subjective, right?
Yeah.
Your world is subjective. My world, it's like, what are you going to like more? And so I think that I like this 2-strike rule where I want you to know that I care. I want you to know that I'm going to push back because I care.
Right.
And so if there is an intersection where we're going, hey, I want to go this route, I want to go this route, I see it as our responsibility to say, based on our experience and opinions, here's what we think we should do. Hear your perspective and very much listen. Maybe if we still feel the same way we do, push back one more time. And then that 2 strikes is up, and then ultimately execute on your vision. So that's kind of that's the way I've sort of handled it.
Yeah. And I think you brought up a really good point too that I come across a lot when you said we're not museum people. And that is one qualifying question that I ask of people too, is excursions. What type of excursions would you like to do? Are you history people? Are you big foodies? Are you art people? And I also wholeheartedly believe that when you go on a trip, you shouldn't be forced to do the touristy things just because it's something that everybody else has done. And so that is a very fine line too, where people tell me we're not museum people. And I'm like, you shouldn't have to visit a museum or spend hours walking through a museum if that's not how you see yourself spending your time. If you just love to sit outside of a little cafe and sip coffee and people watch, that's also part of a cultural.
Is awesome, by the way.
That's a huge part of the culture in Paris.
Right. It's like an ongoing cinema. Just every 30 seconds, somebody new's coming by, and you can be like, oh, that's a person. That's a person.
So you shouldn't have to feel compelled to go to these museums when you're not museum people. And some people say, oh, well, that was something we realized that maybe we should have gone to that museum. It's a reason to go back.
Right. No, that's totally true. And I think for my takeaway from that is maybe, you know, again, stepping into the pack space, maybe do one of those things you didn't think you wanted to do. Right. You wanted to people watch the whole time. You didn't want to book one.
Yes.
Right. And so, because I think we found ourselves, we were big on aimlessly walking around. That was like, and I think we put on like 5-6 miles in Paris one of the days, just walking, you know, and loved it. Some of our best memories from that. I think that if we had booked that one thing, right. And by the way, no regrets. Like it was, that was our, you know, like the no regrets tattoo from
no rag, not even a letter.
Yeah. Ragrats. That was our sort of motto on the trip. But that was one of the things that I would say, if there's anything that it would be a recommendation from that, is do that one thing once. You know, you've got 5 days, 10 days, 12 days, you're on a trip like this, do one of those things one of the days.
Right.
And then if you were like, that reinforces that we wish we hadn't done that. It's 1 hour that you burned, right? So, okay, we've talked a little bit about, you know, this sort of philosophy around authenticity. We've talked around the approach that we take.
Yes.
What are some recommendations you have? And it's kind of segueing off what I just said, like randomly, whatever value that tip is of like, do that one thing, right? What are some other recommendations that you would share with folks that are like, when you're either stepping into creating the vision, how to think about things, setting expectations on the process, right? I know there were times we talked probably almost a year before we took the trip, right? When we first had our conversation. So, man, all that downtime, right, in between, I don't know, are there expectations? Are there things that you get from clients that you wish they knew going into this?
I want people to know that you don't have to book a trip a year in advance. I have booked trips for people 2 weeks in advance.
Oh, cool.
And I have a client leaving today. She's going to Edinburgh with her family, and she called me 2 weeks ago, and she said, I'm crazy. This is insane. We have this 1 week off. We didn't plan anything. We're far behind. It's your friend, Galit.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
okay, that's great. That's
Actually,
great. Hey, Glee, wherever you guys are.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
you referred
Yeah.
her.
Oh, amazing.
But she said, it's crazy, it's insane. And I said, it's not. It's you can absolutely go where you want to go when you want to go there. And it might not be the exact thing you pictured. You might not get the exact hotel that you had always envisioned, but you could still take that trip.
Right.
And if you feel the need to escape, a lot of people are doing that right now. They're calling me and saying, I just got to go. And I'm running out of PTO. It's coming down to the end of the year. My PTO doesn't carry over. I have to take this trip. I don't know where. I don't know where I want to go, but I need to go somewhere. And it's 3 weeks from now. It doesn't have to be a year in advance for you to have your perfect dream trip. It will still end up amazing. It can still end up amazing, even if you do it on a crunch time.
Well, I think part of that is, and you know, this is me stepping into my psychologist brain that I don't have any background in and no accreditations for, but I think that part of that is you bringing that level of your personality. Like the joke I made earlier, Alexa and I went on this trip. This is a big bucket list trip for us. And we were like, no regrets. We're not going to sit there and, you know, cry and moan because the air conditioning was never just so in Europe, which it's never just so in Europe, ever. There was one place, actually, surprisingly, was the one place in Ravello that was the most comfortable. And they definitely, something was wrong because when you walked into the hallway, it was like a freezer, and which was great. No complaints. And then our room was really cool. And so I was like, they're probably like, have a broken duck somewhere that's just like pouring AC in, and somebody else is dying in their room. They're going to get the bill and
freak out.
Right, exactly. But man, that, you know, I think walking into that situation with that sort of attitude, right? And so especially if you're in the PTO time crunch, gotta go on this trip, make it great. Like coming in with a relaxed, you know, approach is at the end of the day, you could plan the perfect trip for somebody. If they don't come in with that right attitude, it's going to be sour. I think for us, I wanted to just highlight too, what I really loved was some of the level of detail there. We didn't have an overwhelming document that you gave us for the trip, right? Which there could have been like you know, it could have been an encyclopedia. There were really relevant details. My wife can have motion sickness at times. One of the little notes that was really cute, anytime we had a shuttle that had been planned for us, was take your medicine 1 hour before. She'd have like the time on there. Chelsea would have the time on there. And then there, you know, even the dinners, like I think those were the nuances of the details. Like if somebody plans your flight and your hotel, right, what are you doing the rest of the day? And I thought what was really cool that I don't know, you know, I haven't worked with other travel agents, so I don't know, but my assumption is that they're not providing that level of detail. And I mean, our dinners were coordinated, the locations we were going to, we even had recommendations on, you know, in Paris, I remember on what subway stops to take and where to get off before we went too far. It was one of your recommendations. And that level of detail is really important, especially from somebody that's actually walked the walk. Yeah. So that was really cool.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. It's something that I work really hard on, and something when I interviewed with other travel agencies that I decided up front, this is something I'm doing different from everybody else, because traditional travel agents, you get this huge, massive booklet of just facts. It's just Wikipedia and AI. Essentially, it's the AI breakdown of Florence. And this is the history. It was built in this time, which you're going to learn when you get there anyway. I don't need to put this on here. I want to fill your itinerary, and I have John's right here.
You could just follow it. You know,
don't zoom in and steal this. I want to fill this itinerary with information that's going to be relevant to you when you're there that nobody else is going to tell you. I want to tell you my favorite panini shop that is very different and very far away from the panini shop that you see all over Instagram that everybody's going to. That has the highest rating on TripAdvisor that AI is going to send you to because it pulls it from ratings from TripAdvisor.
Right.
And that was why I made sure to put those notes down about taking the medications, because that's relevant to you.
Well, it's part of your experience. If you don't, I mean, that goes in our space. I use the term, it's our responsibility. So even if it's something, you know, let's say we're doing a corporate event, networking event, and we're filming it, right? Maybe it's an educational conference. So we've got shooters deployed and we're filming all these different things. We are responsible for the camera operators on the site to get the content. We are going to be responsible for getting audio, right? So we now need to collaborate with the AV team, right? The AV team has their own core responsibilities when they're setting up and all those different things. All of a sudden now, I need to plug my audio recorder into their board because even though they told me over the phone they were going to record it for me, I want a backup, right? So now I need to know when they're setting up so that I can get my crew in there. So all of a sudden now AV's setup time is my responsibility.
Yeah.
And by the way, everything we film is going to have a background. So if you don't have uplighting and you didn't really dress the location up, all of a sudden now set design is our responsibility.
Yeah.
So the way I look at it is like, even though we aren't the ones that are going to be implementing it, it is our responsibility because it touches what we do.
Yes.
Right. And so I think that when you have that mentality, there's so many times I've been on calls with clients where they're like, oh, no one mentioned, do we need speakers in this other room? Because they're just order taking. They're going, you tell us how many mics, lights, whatever we need. When you provide a consultative process, it's you tell me your vision. I will tell you how many mics, lights, and things you need. And so, coming back to you, like bringing it out of the video space, that was like a random, it felt like a random footnote, but what are those things that what's like a good example of some of those details? I know you mentioned paninis, right? Like what's a good example? Yeah.
So as you were talking about that, I think the responsibility point is extremely pertinent. And I would say that authenticity is my responsibility and making a trip feel authentic is my responsibility. My responsibility, the lowest of my responsibilities is that you get there and you have a place to sleep and that you have a train to get there. My responsibility is that, like you said, the rest of your time is filled with things that matter. And my responsibility is making sure that you know to take euros out ahead of time, not because you should have them when you go over there to pay for cash for things, but because I know that in order to have a good trip, the last thing you want to think about when you land is I have to go get euros. I have to go to a bank. I have to take euros out. You want to go on your trip. And my responsibility is authentically telling you that's gonna suck. If you don't take euros out now before you go on your trip, it's gonna suck when you get over there. You're gonna have a terrible conversion rate. So authenticity and being authentic about what you should do before your trip.
And when you should do it, right?
Yeah. And I said this to you, it's in your itinerary. I have a million things listed of things that are outside of stuff that you booked. I said, you could go here, you could see this, you could go to this garden, you could do this thing. It's my responsibility to make sure that you're in a place and I don't just drop you in the middle of a pool like a sim without a ladder and you're just freaking out and you don't know how to get out of the pool. My responsibility is to make sure to give you toys in the pool and to give you the ladder and to make sure you can get out. But it's to give you a bunch of options to fill your day. And if you do none of them, I don't care. If you do all of them, incredible. But I wholeheartedly believe it's my responsibility to give you all of the recommendations and give you all of the knowledge that I can find, that I can put on this piece of paper to make sure that you have an authentic and incredible experience while you're over there. The hotel and the train are the least of that, honestly.
So let me ask you this, and maybe we'll wrap up on this one too.
Yeah.
And I don't know the best way to frame it, but I don't know if I want to ask it. Okay, I'll give you the Robert Frost.
Yeah.
You can take the path less traveled. Okay. Option A is, what if people don't care about an authentic experience, right? And they just want the we kind of referenced it earlier. They want that's the hotel.
Yeah.
That's I want it. I want it. I
Yeah.
want that. What do you do about that situation? Are you turning people away? Or are you just going, okay, you know what? I said, 2 strikes or whatever, right? Whatever your rule is. Another way of putting it is like, what if people don't even know where to start on what that means? Right. And maybe that's a more interesting question. Yeah. What do you do? How do you define an authentic experience?
There are 2 ways that I define an authentic experience abroad. One of them has to do with you, and one of them has to do with where you're visiting. Authentic is authentic to you. And we touched on this a little bit, but it is, again, authentic to you as an individual. If you hate fish, don't go fishing. If you're
Write that down.
yeah. And be honest with yourself and authentic with yourself. And I try and allow people to do this in the whole process where I'm talking to them. Again, where do you envision yourself? What do you envision yourselves doing? Tell me the best and the worst of it. If your preference at a hotel is a king bed and breakfast every morning, be authentic to that.
Right.
Because if you tell me, oh, I don't care, I don't know, it's whatever, and you're not telling me honestly and authentically what matters to you when you travel.
Right.
Or,
then you're hangry by 11 o'clock on
Right.
the tour that you shouldn't have booked
Yes.
because you didn't get the
Yeah.
breakfast that you needed in the full bed that you slept in.
And
Right.
regardless of how authentic of a tour I booked you on or authentic of a place I sent you to, you're going to be miserable because you slept in a twin bed with
Right.
your partner that you never ever wanted to do because that was...
It's not for you, right?
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier that you've done the dirty hostel travel style, and you've done the more luxurious.
Yeah.
And I imagine your target audience, most of the people that are hiring you to do this, are probably in
Like
their
in the middle.
In the middle, where
Yeah.
they want something. They don't want to sleep on a mattress on the
Right.
floor, but
Yeah.
they want something that feels
Yes.
genuine.
Yeah.
And so I think that I love that, being honest with yourself first, right? So
Right.
that you can actually share in your vision what is actually going to be enjoyable.
Right.
And then that's something you can build around.
And so then the second part of authentic with the place that you're visiting, I work really hard on making connections abroad with different suppliers, different tour operators, food tours. I have like a very ingrained in my heart favorite food tour, which was how I got started in the industry actually. But I find them to be very authentic, and I test out these tours. I go abroad, I go to these restaurants, I talk to the waiters, I talk to the waitresses, I try and talk to the cooks if I can. I try and make these authentic connections abroad so that I'm not just sending you to someone that I'm
looked up
making
online.
commission off of.
Right.
I'm sending you to someone that I know is doing work with integrity, which is, again, what I really
Right.
stand on. And I try and mix those two authenticities, what's authentic to you and what's authentic to the place, to form something that's really magical and is going to end up being great. And again, every person is different, every single trip is different, everybody wants different things in hotels, which is why I say I don't do cookie cutter trips. I will never give you the same exact trip that somebody else has, because every single person's different and everyone wants a different thing when they're traveling. I just try and sprinkle
Right.
my opinions and thoughts and
It's experience.
experiences in there
Right.
to make it the best that it can be, but not for the best that was for someone else. It's the best that's for you, which is why I try and like pull the authenticity out of people when I first meet with them and talk with them. And since I do that, it becomes a really personal experience throughout the entire pack process. And whether we're working together for 2 weeks or 1 year, I get to know a lot of my packers. And it's funny, a lot of them like invite me out to drinks when they get back, or they have limoncello and when they come back from Italy, and we sit and we drink and we talk together and enjoy with this experience, because I don't just believe that's why I call them my packers, because
Right.
they're mine. And I don't just believe that it's a one and done, I booked this trip for you, I have nothing to do with you anymore. I have an unpack call with them. This is our unpack call, technically.
Some of them invite them to your podcast to talk about
Yeah.
what they do, and then do an unpack call live in front of a bunch of people. That's
And so I want to know, how was your experience? Where did you go that was amazing? I think that's one other point. I could go on forever about this, but that's one other point about me building this honest business, is if someone goes to a new restaurant that I've never heard of, which obviously that's going to happen. I haven't been to every single restaurant in the world. I take my packers' recommendations and I go and check them out, or I then look them up and see what the menu is like, give them to other people.
Sure.
And I'm very open to feedback and where other people have gone and what their recommendations are, because I just want to build on what I can give people and what I can serve people. That's not just something that I found on like somebody's that I don't know,
Right.
their TikTok feed.
Well, that's what's really interesting. I think that, probably a good place to put a pin in it. And
Yeah.
and I think you've hit this before, but I want to reiterate it, is like, obviously there's new tools now with AI that can organize the data and mine this for you and whatever, but it's pulling it from the mainstream feeds, right? And even if those feeds are accurate, meaning that is a great restaurant and that is a great location. I know we experienced this when we went to Italy. We were on the Amalfi Coast, so we saw Sorrento, Ravello, and Positano. And I think Ravello was our favorite spot.
Yeah.
It was amazing. I bet you in 5 years it won't be, because I bet you by then enough people will have seen it, gone there. It gets a little more commercialized. We all know that's the music analogy, right? Everyone knows the band now, and so it's not cool anymore. But unlike music, which is just like your own perspective, if the place no longer carries that sort of charm because it's overpopulated, it's got too many tourists, it loses a little bit of that luster. So I think that's where TripAdvisor and all of these places are going to be a step behind somebody that is constantly having the conversation in a more one-to-one way and getting that information. And how many times do you go on there and somebody's complaining and you read 3 and you're like, oh, this person's a nightmare. Like, I don't care. They're complaining about everything. Like there's no way that this trip was that bad. This person just came in with that ragrats attitude. And so I think that's really a good mindset shift for people that might be on the fence, might be thinking like, I can do this myself. I can say from personal experience working with you that we had maybe 3 or 4 calls, gave you the information. We got this awesome packet. Everything was...
Packet.
See what we did there? I did it right. And we were ready to go. And even that reduced a lot of the stress. Gave us a baseline. In video production, we talk about like how you're going to have to be flexible and sometimes deviate from the plan on set, but you shouldn't show up on set without a plan.
Right.
And so I think that those were the things that were really great about this. It made that planning part amazing. The execution was phenomenal. Like everywhere we went, we had room in our itinerary to create our own paths. And ultimately, the parts of a trip that are stressful weren't. So the parts that are enjoyable were.
Yeah.
Chelsea, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me on
Thanks
here.
for coming on.
Thanks for
Beyond the Frame.
unpacking.
Oh, thanks for... now I got to clean up all the stuff that I unpacked. This was great. Thank you. And if you like this video and want to see more like it, please like, share, and subscribe.
Thanks so much.